begin. The slides that will be presented today will be posted online. You can find the bios of the speakers also posted in the chat box. And we will try our best to have some time allocated for Q&A at the end. So please do feel free to post your questions in the chat box. And the moderator, myself, along with the team, will try to get to those questions. So without further ado, I'm happy to hand over the floor to Ms. Amal Abu Rafa for her welcoming remarks. Amal is the Chief of Program on Aging Unit at the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs, UN DESA. She co-chairs the UN Agency Group on Aging, and she serves as the Secretary of the General Assembly's Open-Ended Working Group on Aging. She is the member of the steering committee of the Titchfield City Group on Aging-related statistics and age-segregated data. Thank you, Amal. Over to you.
Thank you, Sarah. Colleagues and friends, it's a real privilege to join you all today as we come together on World Elder Abuse Awareness Day, an occasion that is about much more than raising a flag once a year. It is about building momentum, holding space, and pushing boundaries to protect the dignity and the human rights of older persons everywhere. 15 years ago, the General Assembly took a historic step in designating 15 June as a day of awareness, solidarity, and action. That recognition did not happen in a vacuum. It happened because of the passion and perseverance of advocates like INPEA, the International Network for the Prevention of Elder Abuse. I want to pay special tribute to Susan Summers, president of INPEA, who has been a guiding light for many of us. Susan, your friendship, your mentorship have been invaluable. You have been a steadfast champion for the human rights of older persons, calling things exactly as they are, and pushing all of us to do better. You've mobilized resources and inspired action from the global halls of power right down to community level. And you do this quietly but powerfully and persistently. And I thank you for your strength and your clarity and your unwavering commitment. And speaking of local heroes, years ago, I had the honor of visiting Beograd and witnessing the incredible work of Natasha and Milutin at Red Cross Serbia. Their efforts are a blueprint to how dedicated people can translate policy into real change on the ground. And their lessons continue to resonate, including in discussions at the United Nations. Behind the scenes, Patricia Brownwell has been an indispensable advisor over the years to us at DESA on combating elder abuse. And Patricia's tireless dedication ensures that today's event is grounded in solid evidence and experience, and we owe her a debt of gratitude. Thank you, Pat. And we must spotlight Claudia Mahler, the independent expert on the enjoyment of all human rights by older persons. Claudia's work reminds us that elder abuse is fundamentally about human rights violations, and her recent reports elevate this issue within discussions both in the General Assembly and the Human Rights Council. Last and not least, our co-chair at the UN Interagency Group on Aging, my colleague Sarah Salman, a truly inspiring professional and partner. When she speaks or moderates, you immediately understand why she is so deeply respected by colleagues at the UN. And why does the theme of this year matter? It is because abuse in long-term care facilities is a crisis, and it demands urgent attention through robust data and decisive action. The discussions we have today are more than just talk, in my view. I think they must really fuel the momentum in the Human Rights Council, where an open-ended intergovernmental working group will soon be established and begin drafting a legally binding instrument to protect the human rights of older persons. And because standards alone are not enough, they must be grounded in policy and policy in practice. What we hear and learn today can and should inform that process as well. This is especially important as we approach the fifth cycle of review and appraisal of the implementation of the Madrid Plan of Action beginning next year at the national level. I urge all civil society to fully engage in that process, share successes, your struggles, your data, your stories, your wins, so that governments and even in the upcoming deliberations at the Human Rights Council can learn what works, what doesn't work, and what must change. Thank you all for being here, and thank you for the work that you do. And thank you for showing up for older persons, not just today, but every day. And I wish you all a powerful and productive discussion. And I pass the floor back to my colleague, Sara. Thank you.
Thank you, Amal, and always powerful words. And it's hard to talk after you, but if you may allow me just to maybe share a few reflections before we hear from our stellar panel today. I was trying to prepare and to say what I want to say today in today's event, and three things came to my mind. Elder abuse is still invisible, elder abuse is a taboo, and the perception of elder abuse is problematic. And let me share with you my thinking. Obviously, after, regarding the invisibility of elder abuse, after close to 20 years from the first day this day was observed, in many countries, elder abuse continues to be underreported, its victims are voiceless, and countries struggle to put in place proper protection mechanisms.
Sara, you muted.
Sorry, have you heard anything I've said? Okay, I just got muted again. Okay, now on the issue of why elder abuse is a taboo, and I don't know if this is necessarily true across regions and across cultures, but I can speak from my region. So I represent the ESCWA, so basically the Arab states. And in our region, whether due to cultural sensitivity, to religion, to tradition, etc., speaking about elder abuse in itself is a challenge. And here, allow me to share a personal experience. I was working with one of the Arab governments, supporting them with developing their policies to ensure the rights of older persons. And I was very delicately approaching the issue of we need to put in place policies that protect from abuse. And the automatic reaction I got was, we do not have elder abuse in our country. Now, for granted, this was a middle upper income country, etc., but it is impossible to not have elder abuse. Unfortunately, that's the sad reality we live in. But even to bring policymakers, and I'm really talking about the policy level here, to recognize that there could be elder abuse, that is their responsibility to take actions to address elder abuse, is a challenge in itself. Again, I do not necessarily here generalize across regions and across cultures, but this is something that, at least in my line of work in this region, I have noticed. The third element, and I think is why days like today are super important, is the issue of the perception of elder abuse. And many times when we're talking with policymakers, but also with, with stakeholders, with governments, etc., when we first say elder abuse, the only thing they can think about is this, violence or extreme violence. And therefore, in their head, they think, who's going to hit a 90-year-old person? First, abuse is not just violence. And second, not every older person is a 90-year-old person. And so the understanding and the awareness and recognizing who is an older person, what is their right, and when are you abusing this right, becomes extremely problematic. And when we work with people and different stakeholders, and we unpack the subject and we unpack what abuse is, their perception is like an aha moment. They're like, oh, I think I've done that unintentionally. I think I took the agency or the autonomy of my parents, of my people, of the older persons, etc., without recognizing that I have done that. And, so on and so forth. So days like today, where we celebrate or we recognize or we mark the day of elder abuse, is extremely important at so many levels. Awareness raising for sure, but also this global discussion on what can be done on the ground, translated to policy measures that are very concrete, that can help us all fight elder abuse in all of its forms. I don't want to talk too much. We have really a stellar lineup of speakers for today. And so I'm going to go ahead and hand the floor over to Ms. Natasha Todorovich. I'm sorry if I don't pronounce all the speakers' names correctly. I'm trying my best. Ms. Natasha is a psychologist and a PhD candidate at the Medical School of Belgrade University. And for over 2 decades, her work has focused on the effects of demographic aging, with particular attention to elder abuse, long-term care systems, and the role of informal caregivers. As an active researcher, she explores violence against older people, especially women, and the accessibility of long-term care. Natasha represents Europe in the International Network for the Prevention of Elder Abuse, INPEA, and serves as the president for the Gerontological Society in Serbia. Natasha, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Before I speaking about setting the scene, first of all, I want to thank you, Susan, for I have 2 mothers. One is who gave birth to me, and Susan is my professional mother. And thank you, Susan. Without you, I couldn't have a CV like this. That's all. I think everything is said now. And before I speak, you will see part of our theater performance, Waiting for the Rain. You will see how community can fight against ageism and abuse through culture, theater, and we will see 6. We have 6 stories. Last one is about abuse in institutional settings. Susan and me, we are preparing a webinar with whole theater play. And I will ask now Dražen to put this film.
Danas sa nama nisu više Dragan Malivuk, Pavle Ostojić, Tereza Kiš, Vode! Sestro! Hoću vode! Vode! Hoću vode! Sestro!
Halo, mama. Spavat ću kod vas večeras, pa mi samo namesti krevet. Ne, nije me udario. Ne, ti uopšte ne znaš o čemu pričaš.
Sestro! Hoću vode!
Sestro, dođite više! Zar nikom ne čuje?
Ljudi moji, 2 noći oka nisam sklopila od ove dreke!
I ovaj smrad! A mi treba da ga preslačimo i ove što su za to plaćene.
Sestro! Vode! Donesite, hoću vode!
Something of ageism and elder abuse around.
Evo, nisam plaćena da letim! Ajde, mama, čujem se posle.
Vode!
te prozore, nepodnošljivo je.
Mileva! 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 Zažmurite ti na ovo, ali to je stvarno poslednji put. Dolazi ovamo!
Sestro! Vode! Molim vas! Sestro! Dajte!
Bak, ako nećete da jedete, nemojte da prosipate vaš.
Okay. I hope that this is a true story from one retirement home in Belgrade. And similar story happens in the hospital. And that's people who are with actors writing the scenario. And I hope you will see all play together. Now, I need to setting the scene, elder abuse in institutional settings. Despite growing global awareness, elder abuse in institutional settings remains under-addressed, primarily due to lack of available disaggregated data. Many countries do not collect systematic data, especially within institutions. It's like in Serbia. I can tell you that in Serbia, we don't have any data about abuse in institutions in different levels. Where data do exist, they often really rely on different methodologies, definition, and reporting standards, making cross-national comparison difficult and evidence-based policymaker harder to achieve. Moreover, elder abuse within hospitals, geriatric departments, and local public institutions, such as municipal social services, remains poorly documented and influentially researched. For example, in primary health institution. While long-term care facilities and nursing homes have received some attention, the broader category of institutional settings must be expanded to include other types of facilities and also serve vulnerable older population. Importantly, the lack of data means a lack of prevention. Without clear evidence, targeting action to stop abuse remain difficult or delayed. The COVID-19 pandemic act as magnifying glasses, expose the fragility of care system and uncovering the urgent need to focus more seriously on protection the human rights of older person in institutional settings. A systematic review done by Ji Yong and other authors revealed that high rates of abuse. Staff self-reported that 64.2% had engaged in some form of abuse in the past year. Among residents, reporting abuse included psychological 34%, physical 14%, financial 13%, neglect 11%, and sexual abuse 1.9%. These figures significantly is higher than in community settings. And we have several key factors. First is victim-related risk factors, advanced age 75 plus, being female, dementia or cognitive impairment, high dependency. Second key risk factors in institutional one, inadequate staffing, poor training, high turnover, lack of qualified professionals, emotional burnout of the carers, and environmental, undefined time pressure, stress, and weak oversight mechanism. Because of that, we need to expand the definition of institutional settings to include hospital, geriatrics departments, primary care centers, and local public services, including passive neglect and structural failings. Establish standardized right-based data collection tool at national and international level, foster international research collaboration that reflect the diversity of institutional agreements, particularly in low and middle-income countries and in rural areas where local services are often only form of care. Create independent monitoring mechanism within institutions to detect and address elder abuse. Invest in workforce development, proper training, support, psychosocial support, and adequate staffing in long-term care. Include older people in national survey and human rights monitoring efforts. Address intersectional risks, especially for older women, persons with dementia, and those without family or social support. And embedded elder abuse prevention in broader strategy as part of broader health and human rights strategies within institutional accountability mechanism in place. strengthen legal protections through an international convention on the rights of older persons. In light of rapid demographic aging, fragmented approach are no longer sufficient. A coordinated global response is urgent needed on that includes reliable data, effective monitoring, legally binding instrument to affirm and protect the dignity and rights of older persons in institutional settings. That's something I prepare for the setting the scene, and Susan told me that I tell you that Claudia, unfortunately, Claudia couldn't make to be today with us, but her work is very important, and her reports is highlighting long-term care facilities in both development and developed and developing countries face different data and different problems in this her reports. That's after that, if you have any question, I will be in your disposal.
Thank you, Natasha. Thank you for your thoughtful words, and also for sharing this very moving video with us, which reminds us that sometimes, a visual of 3 minutes can drive hard a message that we try to talk about for decades. I personally found it very hard to watch, and it also triggered a lot of the, incentive for me to continue the work that we do. Anecdotally, currently we're supporting this care home in Lebanon, in a very rural area in Lebanon, to try to bring some minimum standards to the work of care homes in Lebanon. And one of the things that we were trying to, work around is the issue of how do we make sure that protection of elder abuse, which, as you said, is highest in institutional settings, unfortunately, does not go unnoticed, and that there are mechanisms in place to detect it, but also to basically support the caregivers in those institutions to avoid burnout. And, we know from the care stress theory, how that can negatively influence their capacity to provide good quality care and increase potential for abuse. So thanks for your words, Natasha. And as Natasha said, Ms. Claudia Mahler unfortunately had to apologize due to other urgent commitments. So I now give the floor to Ms. Lucia Vidovikova, who is a sociologist and a social gerontologist, and she's an assistant professor at the Department of Sociology, Faculty of Social Studies, Masari K University. She also co-founded the Center for Research on Aging, SERA. Lucia, the floor is over to you.
Thank you very much. And I, Sarah, fully agree with you that watching the video, it was really harsh, but it does show the reality that I'm also going to talk about. And my leading question here is how to make a provision of institutional care safer, because the answer was already mentioned also by Natasha, that we need to learn more about this. Despite we already know a lot, by having data, we will be able to also address the help a little bit better. And we were very blessed by the project by Technological Agency in Czech Republic that allow us to go into institutions and talk about this with the carers and different type of employees about how prevalent they see these things happening. And I will show a very selection of the data analysis with you today. And we are just diving in, so there will be more coming. We were inspired by the study that we already done in previous years, talking about elder abuse and neglect in the community with older persons, 65 plus. And we saw ginormous prevalence of 29% of older people experience some type of elder abuse or neglect through the last year. And if we also add online scams and secondary victimization, this share rose to 40%. And we realized these people really need our support, and we need to label this problem loud and clear. And also we realize these people very often enter later on in their life into institutions, and how the institutional care is prepared, how trauma informed the care is. So that was immediately first question that related the problem that we already see in the community to the long-term care that is the topic today. It was already mentioned that this is a big also methodological question. We were, again, lucky, I may say, we are working together with the Ministry of Labor and Social Affairs here in Czech Republic, and they provided us with 3,000 addresses of nursing homes throughout the Czech Republic. And we sent out an online survey, and we received almost 1,000 respondents of different types of care workers, managers, nurses, directors, very various a picture of the workers in the nursing homes. And you can see by the different shares that I'm sharing here that there were different types of nursing homes, different sizes, different founders, different types of these homes, being Alzheimer care or care units or not. So we have very kind of we feel a good picture of what's out there. But despite that, we have to be aware that this is a selection of people who were ready to answer the questions we were using. And we took the inspiration from the first study as well to use similar questions also to be able later on to compare what's going on in the community with what's going on in the eyes of respondents in institutional care. And the general question was, are there some of these things that we introduced before happening at your current workforce? And here I'm relating back to Sarah, what she mentioned, that 50% of the carers or respondents, I will say, said, no, these things are definitely not happening in our at my workplace. And that's also quite interesting, 20% said, I don't know, I cannot really say, which is equally kind of weird thing that you are not sure if these things are happening or are not, definitely not happening. So both of these subgroups are quite of interesting how to work with those people that have this stance. And we also were aware that there's a different type of violence going on because we unfortunately live in the violent societies. And one of the most often mentioned type of violence was client to client, which is something we don't talk much about, but this is very good picture of how structure is actually kind of supporting the wrongdoings within the institutional care, how we are designing that, what type of architecture is there, and how these things are not really happening, for example, with the onboarding of the new clients and so on and so forth. We also see that institutions, in the terms of or eyes of our respondents, it's not a good protection site from the violence coming from outside family. So there was very much often financial abuse hidden in this. But again, we would expect that the institutional care is there to help the client to protect them from not functional families, and this is not happening. Respondents in almost 40% said that they saw a colleague doing something that is not good, and even in 10% they said some of these things happened to me either once or repeatedly. And because I don't have much time, I will just show you examples of the type of data we have at our hands now. We have this list of neglect of acts that may be understood as a neglect. And we asked, have you seen colleague doing this, and has that ever happened to you as a respondent? And we see quite a lot of high shares of incidents of insufficient or unfriendly communication with the clients, not replacing incontinence aids in time, improper nursing care, preventing clients from using bells to call, and these situations that we already saw also in the video in the theater performance. So all of these are being seen as being done, and some of them are also admitted by the respondents as themselves. So this is in terms of neglect. And now we go into more harsh, or it's not more harsh, but these typical 4 clusters of elder abuse and neglect, being that financial, emotional, physical, or even sexual. And I here also show only the selection of the answers given by the respondent, it happened to me. But we have these tables for all the other groups that we were able to follow of different perpetrators. And you can hopefully see, I'm hoping I'm hiding this with my toolbox, that all of these almost did happen in some type of care provided. And this is also to show that there's probably also kind of thin line between abusive work and kind of risks that are inherent in providing care. Some of these could be interpreted as something that I have to deal with at my job, and I don't have enough resources to do it properly. And therefore, these things do happen. So it really opens for us a new line also of interest in how can we better support the care takers, the works they provide the nursing care, not to be in these situations and not being alone in these situations. I will not go through all these tabs, but of course the table will be available to you, and we will have that also hopefully published soon, so you can really dive into the data. What was interesting to see, as opposite to the research we have done in the community, where we really saw, it was already mentioned, that only 25% of the victims shared about what happened to them. So 75% are silent about this. Here is the picture reversed. We see that almost 80% of the caring staff or the respondents in our case did share about what happened. However, about 22% said that the outcome of sharing this was somehow ambiguous, even up to negative. And we see that this is another call for better whistleblower protection. We have in Czech Republic a very unfortunate case when it was discovered by journalists who did enter nursing home with the cameras, and they were really able to record what's going on there, but they were called in by a whistleblower. This case went to the court, and unfortunately, the judge said that they don't have enough evidence to see that this is really a maltreatment for which we have laws, that this was just morally very bad, and they got away with very low penalty, and the whistleblower committed suicide because the pressure on her was so high that we realized that this is really hard and risky job actually to do. So there's a huge question also to be addressed in the future, because as we also see in our respondents, when we ask them, as you can see in the bottom lines, why didn't you talk about anything? When we leave aside this notion that this incident was just too trivial, it doesn't, it's not too big to talk about it. There are people who are not trusting the system that they will be able to do something about it, or they are even afraid that there will be some repercussion or negative consequences for them. They were afraid of revenge. So again, something we are missing, the systems that would really support this. So to sum up, in this very kind of quick introduction into our data, we really want to talk about it that anytime you are providing care, there's a huge probability a mistake will happen and there will be some problem with the we talk about here. And that the caring is a relationship. So therefore, any address or any support we want to build up must go for the supporting of the victim, but also the perpetrator, but also the community around these two or the group that is involved, because we are all affected by that, because caring is a relationship. We want to continue with this, providing more data on also kind of more broad understanding of this problem. We are looking first into media and how they are reporting on these cases. And we already from the preliminary results, we can see that, of course, they are leaving out the voices of older people, and they are really reporting kind of not the most important points of that. So we want to work further on with journalists. We are also working with the medical doctors that are looking at the medical records of injuries that are happening within the institutional care. And the Professor Dušek still didn't release the data because he said, I cannot believe this is so high. There must be some mistake. So we are really waiting for them, for the statisticians to check, but we are afraid they don't really have their mistakes, and there are really happening a lot of injuries like falls and other things that may be also indicating that there's something fishy going on. And last but not least, of course, we want to continue the global debate about this, again, to support the debate in terms of let's not be afraid about these topics. Let's talk about it openly, because these things may happen to all of us who provide care, and we need the support. So with this, I'm leaving the floor for any further discussion, and please stay tuned for the results as they are coming more in more detail. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Lucia, for the information shared. And indeed, the issue of data, and how we can use this data to build responsive responses, to put in protection mechanisms, and to tailor those mechanisms to the needs for older persons. Especially in institutional settings where the power dynamics can be a little bit, imbalanced. How will older persons trust that if they raise their concern, if they're capable to? Because on a lot of the cases, the older persons themselves might not necessarily have the capacity to do that. But even if they do, how will they trust the system, basically? So these are, unfortunately, I have more questions than answers. But these are the kinds of things that we try to think about when we're trying to put, again, solutions. Our work is not just, for an academic nature, just to, find the data and understand the reality, but also to propose the solutions and what can be best done, basically. So thanks for a lot of the information that you provided, Lucia. And I now hand the floor over to Ms. Wenche Karen Melmedal, who holds a position as a professor at the Norwegian University of Science and Technology in Norway, and the Department of Public Health and Nursing. She's a specialist in psychiatric nursing with a PhD in health science. Dr. Melmedal has since the early 90s been particularly concerned about elder abuse and published several articles and book chapters on the topic. The title of her doctoral thesis, published in 2013, is Inadequate Care, Abuse and Neglect in Norwegian nursing homes. So, Dr. Melmedal, over to you.
Thank you. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can. Please proceed.
That's good. Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me to present at this webinar. It's a great honor to me. I have been working on the elder abuse topic for approximately 30 years now, both as an educator and also as a researcher. I am a registered nurse with a master degree and PhD in health sciences, and I teach and supervise students at all levels, bachelor students in nursing, master students in public health, and also doctoral students in nursing, public health, and medicine. I have also led and are still leading several research projects on elder abuse and neglect, and some of them I will present to you today. This is the research team that I have been leading, and we have been conducting quite a few studies. And as I say, there will be 4 of you I will present today, more than going in depth in 1 or 2. And I will, of course, provide you with a complete list of references. So if you are interested to learn more about the projects, please use this list. And also, of course, contact me if you want. So these are the 4 different studies we have. I want to present today. There are 4 studies on elder abuse in long-term care, all of them in our traditional nursing homes. We also, when we considered also home care as long-term care, we also have some few studies in home care, but I'm not presenting that today. Today it will be from the, as I said, traditional nursing homes. In Norway, the majority of the nursing homes are owned and run by the municipalities, and there's only a few percentage that are private, and those who are private of them, there are only a few of them who are for-profit, so mostly non-profit. So this is the first study I will present to you. It is a cross-sectional exploratory study of elder abuse in Norwegian nursing homes. And the aim was to generate new knowledge on the extent, nature, and risk factors of elder abuse in Norwegian nursing homes. And actually, the design looks very much like the previous speaker. So it was very interesting for me to see the results. And as I I will not be able now to go deep into the results here, but you will, as I said, have the references. So this was a national cross-sectional survey of 3,693 nursing staff that was recruited from 100 nursing homes in Norway, and that is approximately 10% of all the nursing homes we have in Norway. And very similar to the numbers from Jan et al., 67% of the nursing staff had observed colleagues, and 60% admitted to have themselves perpetrating or engaged in at least one episode of abuse the previous year. Psychological abuse and neglect were the most reported types. Risk factors were staff having symptoms of distress, poorer quality of childhood, intention to leave job, and poor attitude towards persons with dementia. And in addition, care-related conflicts and resident aggression, as well as lack of support from manager, were associated with different types of abuse. From this study, which actually was a doctoral study for one of my students, Anja Bottengård, we have published 3 articles, and you will find the references here. So there are quite a lot of data from this study, and until now it generated these 3 articles, but also actually a 4th article on relative to resident abuse, and when relatives visit the residents in nursing homes and commit some kind of abuse. So this was the first study, and this was actually the first national study on this topic. So it was quite a new one, and it's the first big study that really has put on the agenda the situation in nursing homes in Norway. I did one in my doctoral thesis, but that's years ago, and it was just from one region in Norway. The second study is the role of leadership in promoting safety for nursing home residents and preventing elder abuse and neglect. So the aim of this study was to explore how reports and information can be used by the managers to promote patient safety related to abuse and neglect in nursing homes. So the main topic here was patient safety, but related to abuse and neglect. We conducted 6 focus group interviews with 28 ward leaders. All of them were registered nurses, and also 15 individual interviews with nursing home directors, also registered nurses from 6 municipalities and 21 nursing homes. So it's not a really big study, but again, it was the first study of this kind in Norway. A core finding was a lack of awareness about the concept of elder abuse and neglect. So when we start talking to the nurses and ask them about elder abuse and neglect, they actually had no idea about what it was. But after giving them some examples, then they came up with also episodes. But there was an ambiguity in their examples of harmful events, because even if they described them as harmful, they rationalized them and somehow excused why it happened. And there was a feeling of powerless in terms of being able to follow up on all levels, and lack of evaluation tools was seen as a barrier to facilitating patient safety and systematic organizational learning. We saw from these few nursing homes, 21 nursing homes, I think we found about 5 or 6 different types of reporting system. And all of them were internal reporting, and we don't have or didn't have and still doesn't have a reporting system for the whole country, only for very, very serious or severe incidents. So this is not covered by that national reporting system. So here also you will see there are 3 articles from this study, and it was also a PhD student, Janne Myhre, who was taking part in this project. So the third study is about the relatives. Because we heard the voices from the staff, we also wanted to hear the voices from the relatives. So this is a study on relatives' perceptions of abuse and neglect of nursing home patients. And the aim was to explore their relatives' experiences, and it was a qualitative study. This was during the pandemic, so we couldn't meet them in person, so it was online interviews. We had 18 relatives all over Europe, no, all over Norway, sorry, who took part in this study. And we saw that the relatives had observed all types of abuse and neglect. And neglect of basic care and individual rights were predominant. As the relatives see it, abuse and neglect are not single acts, but a part of daily life in nursing homes. They experience low competence among staff, and they see that the patient's needs are not met. And when the relatives notified, they were often not heard. They say it's like constantly fighting a battle. So from this study, we have 2 articles, but one of them is in Norwegian, so it won't help you much, I think, but the other one is in English. And there are also very few studies that really ask the relatives about their experiences. And in Norway, this is actually the first. And I think that's not so many in Europe or worldwide either. The last study I will tell you about is a qualitative study of neglect in Norwegian nursing homes. So this is a study that only looks into the different aspects of neglect and neglective care. Because we see, and I think that you also experience that neglect is very predominant in nursing homes, and we wanted to see why is it happening, and not at least why can it continue to happen. And this was a qualitative study with focus group discussions, all in all 20 persons in the focus group, and we also had individual interviews with staff in nursing homes. And there were different types of staff, registered nurses, licensed practical nurses, and assistants. And the findings is that neglect is normalized through various strategies, including legitimizing neglect by ignoring that it exists. And that means that you fail to recognize also your own actions as neglectful, and you start to accept missed care as a routine. Because when resources are scarce and care must be rationalized, then you need to justify why you are doing what you are doing. Staff members might downplay instances of missed care and not categorize them as neglect, and then consequently failing to report them. Additionally, there may be a reluctance to acknowledge or disclose neglectful practices, whether it's their own or those of their colleagues. I think we also saw from a previous speaker about why you don't report, and the same goes also for staff, that they say it's no use reporting, nothing will happen, or this is not serious enough to report, or maybe if I report, then someone will punish me. So it's a reluctance to report neglective practice. So from this study, we also have 3 articles published already. This is also a PhD student, Stine Borgenlund, who is almost finished with her PhD now. This was the 4 studies I wanted to tell you about, and I will be happy to answer any questions about them. But I have to say that from Norwegian side, we are now starting to have extensive knowledge on elder abuse in nursing homes. Not so much on home care. We have a few studies also there, but we think that we have enough proof. There is enough proof that elder abuse exists in nursing home. So what we need now is good initiatives to prevent abuse and to support the victims. There is, let I say, light at the end of the tunnel, in the sense that we more and more find abuse acknowledged as an existing problem in nursing homes in our national plans and documents. But still, we have very few good examples of working models in use. And there is a lack of studies evaluating these models to see if they have effect or not. And this should be the next step in research. So we are working on that in my research group to find good studies that can show the effect or to test some models because we see that that is the next step, at least from our side. So thank you very much for your attention. This is pictures from my hometown, Trondheim, which is in the middle of Norway. I welcome you all there. It's a nice town, at least when it's good weather. Today it's raining. So thank you.
Thank you, Wenche, and thank you for the generous invite, which we would love to take you on. I echo what you said. The rationalization of abuse by the caregivers in the case of your research, but in the research we were doing at ESQA, we're currently doing at UN ESQA. On elder abuse in the Arab region, in which we study basically elder abuse in 3 countries, in Yemen, in Lebanon, and in Jordan. In our research, we do focus groups as well and interviews with older persons, with caregivers, both in institution settings and within the families. And our findings are very similar. So from the caregiver side, that a lot of the time, first of all, they don't recognize that what they're doing is abusive necessarily, even when prodded. But also at the same time, older persons themselves, victims of abuse, rationalize this abuse. They say, oh, well, they did it because they're tired, they're stressed, they don't have the resources, etc. So here, addressing elder abuse in institutional settings, to be mindful of both. How it's rationalized by the caregivers, but also by older persons themselves, which may make them less likely to report it. So just a thought. Before I continue with our panel, I encourage anyone who has questions to please post it in the chat box. All our presenters are happy to answer, and we'll have a few minutes for that. But in the meantime, for our panelists, I urge you to maybe just jot down a few solid recommendations from your work that you can pose as, moving forward, what is it that is needed immediately to fight elder abuse in institutional settings, something that we can perhaps build on in our respective lines of work, but also in future events. So now I hand the floor over to Dr. Elin Caspi, who's a gerontologist and elder mistreatment researcher and director at the Dementia Behavior Consulting. He's an award-winning book author and documentary film co-director. And throughout the past 18 years, he has led several research studies aimed at improving understanding and the prevention of various forms of elder mistreatment in nursing homes and assisted living residences. Dr. Caspi, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you so much, and Susan and Pat, for inviting me and all the preparations that went into this event. In this segment, I will focus on a relatively new form of elder abuse in nursing homes, but also in assisted living in the community. It occurs when care staff members take photos and videos of residents with demeaning and abusive content, and then they post these on social media. I just want to recognize my colleagues, Waylene, Marian, and Leanna from the Purdue University School of Nursing for their collaboration on this project. Some of the content we're going to hear is disturbing, and this form of abuse is considered an extreme version of neglecting to treat a resident as a person. Nearly a decade ago, ProPublica released a groundbreaking report with dozens of disturbing incidents. In response, the nursing home industry admitted that they are all struggling, all nursing homes are struggling with this issue. Some examples from the ProPublica report is an aide taking a photograph of residents' genitals and sending it to a friend who uploaded it to Facebook. That was in New Jersey. And then in New York, an aide took photos of incontinent residents' genitals covered with feces and posted on Snapchat. In Iowa, a CNA took a photo of a person living with dementia with his legs and hands covered with feces with a caption, "Shit galore." In Illinois, a staff member used a nylon strap to slap the face of a 97-year-old individual with dementia who was crying out saying, don't, while the employees laughed. It was then posted on Snapchat. In California, a video posted on Instagram showing an employee expelling gas over the resident's face. Later, the resident said that it happens about once a month. In Indiana, an aide pleaded guilty for sharing a photo of a resident's butt on Snapchat. When asked about it, the aide said it was just a picture of her butt. Everybody takes pictures of residents all the time. In Illinois, a 91-year-old woman was taunted with a hospital gown, and then a video was posted on Snapchat. The victim's daughter said this is a sick idea of entertainment, and the victim had nightmares about the incident, even though she no longer lived in that nursing home. And a recent incident in Minnesota, a video showed a man with cerebral palsy and moderate cognitive impairment who was sitting half naked on his bed. A nurse had aggressively threw him down on the bed and then threw his shoes at him, striking him in the head and chest. Another incident in the same nursing home, a photo showed a woman holding a picture of a man with an erection, and the caption said, "Showing me the expletive pics she gets." This phenomenon is underreported. Partially because many nursing homes do a terrible job reporting abuse, but partially because advanced cognitive disability of individuals with dementia. According to one account, some of the most troubling incidents have to do with individuals living with dementia. We're experiencing a lack of data sets and centralized tracking of this form of elder abuse, but I was able to identify data in the very powerful Nursing Home Inspect ProPublica website. And I actually did a whole webinar just on that website because it's so powerful in detecting different forms of elder mistreatment in nursing homes, in 15,000 nursing homes across America. So the qualitative study, we aim to raise awareness to this issue and to generate insights for prevention and policy changes. What I'm going to share with you now is preliminary findings. We focused on 100 nursing homes in 31 states. The data consisted of 100 state investigation reports. We've identified 152 victims, slightly more women than men. 85% of the victims had some level of cognitive impairment, and dozens had moderate to severe cognitive impairment. That's just a conservative estimate. In terms of social media platforms perpetrators use to commit this abuse, Snapchat was the most common one, and then Facebook, and you can see the others on the slide. In Illinois, in our project, we found that a person living with severe cognitive impairment, a video showed a CNA holding up the person's arm, jiggling the loose skin, swinging it back and forth. In Pennsylvania, a person living with severe cognitive impairment received hospice services. An aide taped the person's nose to resemble piggy face, and the video recorded the person singing, and it was posted on Snapchat. In Oklahoma, a person living with severe cognitive impairment was taunted by two CNAs who gave her what is called wet willies, which is wetting a finger with saliva and putting it in her ear, and it was posted on Snapchat. This and the following pictures are not real. They're generated by AI. They're reflecting real incidents that happened as described in the investigation report that we reviewed. In Michigan, a person living with cognitive deficits, two staff members were twerking in his or her face, and the person seemed very offended by it. It was posted to Snapchat. In Texas, a person living with Alzheimer's disease, video showed a CNA tickling the person's nose while asleep, and the aides were laughing. In New York, a woman living with Alzheimer's disease, a CNA pulled off her wig and hit her on the head with it. Then the CNA posted the video on social media. In Oklahoma, a man living with dementia and severe cognitive impairment, a photo showed feces up and down his legs. And the caption, "This is how my morning is, shitty," with capital letters. In Kansas, a woman with severe cognitive impairment was taunted with a baby doll, and then they took the video and shared it during a high school basketball game. In Oregon, A person living with dementia and schizophrenia repeatedly wanted to make funeral plans for a deceased relative. Two CNAs recorded a phone call between themselves and the person. While laughing, they pretended to be funeral home staff and discussed the funeral plans. We have cardboard coffins and we are on so-and-so street. This phenomenon not only occurs in nursing home, it also occurs in assisted living residences where roughly 1 million people live and 40 to 50% of them live with a diagnosis of dementia. In this case, two victims, a video posted on Facebook showed an aide tying their wrists with a metal chain. And when asked about it, the aide said we were just having some fun. This abuse also occurs in the community. A family member of a victim said, "It is very hard for me to see this video of my mother. It is exploitation of a defenseless person." And a care advocate commented on this phenomena. This is a tiny fraction within a giant ocean of videos that are distributed on social media. To summarize, we're talking about gross and abusive violations of older adults' rights for privacy and confidentiality. These photos and videos have demeaning, humiliating, abusive, and dehumanizing content that is then posted on social media. And you can see later CMS definition of dehumanization at the bottom of the slide. So reactions to this form of elder abuse, it's an emerging threat to older adults. It's cruel, it's disturbing, it's appalling, it's disgusting, it's inhumane, and it can be a crime. In terms of impact of victims, as gleaned from our 100 investigation reports, beyond loss of the person's dignity, trust, and relationships, the individuals experienced embarrassment, humiliation, dehumanization, devastation, crying, feeling violated, anxiety, fear, depression, inability to sleep, and withdrawal. And all this is before applying CMS, what is called reasonable person concept, for those victims who live with advanced stage of dementia, whose voice you often won't hear. Some areas for consideration at the level of the care home, hire people with built-in compassion. And of course, I'm not ignoring the elephant in the room, which is a severe workforce crisis, but there is a roadmap to address it. Educate all employees on rights and reporting requirements, and that they are mandatory reporters. There must be zero tolerance policy, and all employees must be aware of consequences, must educate residents and families on their rights and how they can protect themselves. There must be appropriate and enforceable policy and procedures, and there must be immediate and thorough investigations upon suspected violations and timely reports to the state survey agency and law enforcement. It is not just posting those videos and photos, it's the taking, keeping, and sharing them. One nurse said that her grandchildren were playing with her phone and accidentally they posted on Facebook a wound care photo of a person with dementia. The family was very upset. In terms of cell phone policies, absolutely no cell phone usage in care areas. And if so, only while on break, and even then, only in designated break areas. And there could be rare emergency-based exceptions. In terms of call for action, we must strengthen CMS, the federal agency that oversees nursing home, and state survey agencies oversight and enforcement of this specific form of abuse. We must ensure that all stakeholders are aware of the requirements for reporting reasonable suspicion of a crime, and must ensure to strengthen HIPAA enforcement. All agencies must be on top of this, whether it's ombudsman, law enforcement, district attorneys, policies, and lawmakers. And we must bridge gaps in federal and state laws. I'm sorry? We must we must have strong federal leadership in this area, increase criminal prosecution. Perpetrators often go unpunished. Less than 1/3 of incidents result in criminal charges for perpetrators, even though in one extreme case, video showed a mocking of a woman who was dead in bed, and the person got 12 years in prison. We must hold social media platforms accountable. And as U.S. Senator Richard Blumenthal said, urged those platforms to protect residents who cannot consent or defend. And the last slide here is, I want to just recognize that older adults have a human right to be free from this form of abuse. How would you feel if your family member was a victim of this form of abuse? Thank you.
Thank you, Elian. Again, interesting insights, disturbing insights when abuse is for entertainment. That's unfortunately, a reality, and your research, that's what it highlights. And thanks for the, specific policy recommendations that you gave, or the recommendations for action that you gave. I think we need more and more and more of these ways. Need to think of how we can generalize or share those recommendations across the world, where maybe attention to this type of abuse is not as prominent. Frankly, this is the first time I hear about it, and I've been working on aging and abuse for the past 10 years approximately. So thanks for really highlighting this issue. And I hope we'll come back to you with more questions during the Q&A. I now give the floor to Robert Brent, the Professor of Economics Emeritus at Fordham University, where he has taught for the past 42 years. His specialty is cost-benefit analysis, which involves evaluation of government expenditures from a social perspective. His current research is on the evaluation of dementia interventions. He is an INPEA representative at the UN and a certified ombudsman volunteer for New York's long-term care program. Robert, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Can everyone see my PowerPoint?
We can see it now, but you might want to put it on presenters mode.
No. Okay, that's better. Can you go to the bottom of the picture and see?
Can everyone see it now?
That's it.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. So I'm Robert Brent, Professor of Economics at Fordham University, Emeritus. And today I want to talk about the Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program as an intervention to reduce elder abuse. Okay, so previous UN events reported data of the shortcomings of nursing homes in the US. There was the NASIM report on nursing homes, 604 pages, and it pointed out that there are a lot of deaths in nursing homes. There's 149,000 in nursing homes. And although they're less than 1% of the population, less than half of 1%, nursing home residents accounted for 90% of all COVID deaths. So you do the maths. The COVID deaths were 38 times larger in nursing homes than they were in the rest of the population. Then I also gave some talks on published research of mine on dementia, which found that nursing homes reduce a person's life expectancy by 3.4 years. They reduce the quality of life by 2% a year, that someone's in a nursing home, and increase the symptoms of dementia by 3 points on a scale of 0 to 18. So basically, people talked about types of abuse, but these are the consequences, right? So you get various detailed ones. So this is the big picture, right, of it. And I've written a book on it, and on dementia. And one of the interventions is not going to a nursing home if possible. And I'll give those references, but that's not what I'm going to be talking about today. The point is, there's a lot of data that clearly shows that elder abuse is widespread in nursing homes.
We can't hear you, Robert.
Yeah, the slides disappeared.
They're here.
Can you still see them?
Yes, go ahead. Then I covered some 2022 published research.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, so there's a lot of data on the abuse, and the issue is, what can we do about it? And that's why I'm talking about the Ombudsman program. I'm not talking about my own research on dementia. And there are lots of interventions that I've published on dementia. There's over a dozen papers saying that. But what I want to talk about is today about what we can do about it. And this is the Ombudsman program. And it's an initiative to help residents and their families protect their human rights. This has been cited by the independent expert, Claudia Mahler, who was supposed to be here today. It's pointed out that she said it's an important initiative to help protect human rights in nursing homes. And now, insofar as the elderly in nursing homes in the US is concerned, their rights are already meant to be protected by nursing home legislation. These rights are in addition to those set forth in the US Constitution. So what are these additional rights? It's the Omnibus Reconciliation Act of 1987, called OBRA 87. This is also known as the Federal Nursing Home Reform Act. The two key points of OBRA are quality of care and quality of life in long-term care facilities. Can you still see the slides?
Yes, but you need to move it forward.
Yeah, well, I can't see the slide. Can you move it for me?
We'll see if we can.
I'm pressing down, but it's nothing's happening.
All right, well, why don't you continue?
I'll just carry on talking.
Right, continue talking because we're trying to address it.
Okay, so the specifics of the rights. The resident has a right to a dignified existence, self-determination, and communication both inside and outside the facility. A facility must recognize each resident individuality. So this fits in with Tom's Kitwood's book on dementia, that they should be treated as individuals, person-centered care. Some important examples of these rights are receiving visitors of their own choosing at the time of their choosing. So if they're gay, they can invite their partners and they have the right to stay. They have the right to participate in community activities, both inside and outside the facilities. So they have the right to go to religious services outside, and they can voice grievances to the facility without fear of reprisals. And they must receive a 30-day notice of a facility-initiated transfer or discharge. And there's a legal process that goes through, and a judge decides on it. And 95% of the time, they agree with the resident. So the ability to communicate with federal and state officials is also a right, and that includes ombudsman. Okay, so just because these rights exist, it doesn't mean that they are protected. So that's where the long-term care ombudsman program comes in. This was established by the Older Americans Act of 1965, and the law is reauthorized by Congress every 5 years and signed into law by the president. By the late 1970s, all states were required to have an ombudsman program. Each state is required to have an independent state office of the Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program, led by a state ombudsman. Certified ombudsmen are employees and volunteers who are designated as representatives of the office. The activity of a certified ombudsman is that of an advocate for residents. An advocate does not represent their own views, but implies those of the person they are supporting. The advocate on behalf of residents. Okay, so what do they actually do? They investigate every angle of a concern by researching the root cause of the concern and all possible remedies. They report back to the residents to see whether the concerns have resolved to their satisfaction. So, give an example of the other one. If someone's taken a picture of your private parts, the ombudsman can come in and hear that and make sure that something is done. They can talk to the administrator and those responsible will will bear the consequences. So that's an example of what something is done, and it's to the satisfaction of the resident. So the resident, when you come back to them and say, has this been resolved, this photograph on social media, has it been resolved? And they have to give you permission. If not, they can be reported to the state. So there's a National Ombudsman Reporting Program, which combines all the monthly reports of ombudsman. So that law set a national minimum standards of care, including restraints for medical reasons. So they put restrictions on restraints, and as evidence that this is really working, the number of cases of restraints being used was dropped significantly. I'm trying to move yeah. So examples of individual advocacy are working to get a daily shower, addressing a resident's need to be fed slowly in a quiet environment, helping a resident fight a discharge from a facility. And examples of facility-wide advocacies are cold food complaints. Say a whole floor says that the food is cold, and if it's not safe, infection control, and if call lights are not answered, there's also grounds. So a number of the earlier speakers said that people are reluctant to report, and they're reluctant to report because nothing will be done about it. And that's where the ombudsman program comes in. Something will be done with it, one at a time, but something will be done. And in terms of a concern of revenge, this won't be an issue because, again, the ombudsman reports back, and if there's been any revenge, this will be reported and acted on. So if there are any questions, please ask them later on. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Robert, for your presentation and intervention today. And indeed, it is a very inspiring practice that could be considered in other places around the world as a way to bring the voice of older persons that are living in care homes. Susan, I don't know what your policy is on going over time. Do we want to have a few more minutes for Q&A, or because we're already 3 minutes over time, or would you like to close?
Well, I see that we have a few minutes over time, and if people want to stay a few minutes longer and perhaps the Q&A, that's fine. If they have to leave, they have to leave. But I would err on the side of giving a little more attention to the Q&A.
Okay. Okay, in that case, just maybe we had a few questions in the chat that are more logistical. One was there's a request for a link to the video that Natasha has played. So if that could be publicized, that would be helpful for the participants. The other one is also a question whether this event is recorded and if the recording will be made available online. So that also, please, if you can answer that. And also a note, we had mentioned at the beginning of the meeting that all slides that were presented will be made available. However, for the recording, if you can please clarify. Now, in terms of questions, there was a question, or maybe sort of a question, on the basically the minimum movement that has been made so far, despite the evidence, despite the anecdotal data, despite the research on occurrence of abuse in institutional care settings, according at least to one of the participants, that there is little momentum, little movement on addressing and taking, concrete measures that can stop this type of abuse. So if any of the participants or yourself, Susan, would like to speak to that, on why basically the momentum has not been strong enough, and more importantly, what can be done to increase this momentum and to push forward. So that's a question. The second question is on, it's more specific and has to do with paying attention to the stress of caregivers, including the NRAs, and how what can be done, maybe again some concrete recommendations of what can be done to reduce the stress on caregivers in institutional settings as a way to minimize elder abuse. I think these maybe are some of the questions that came along. The rest was, a round of applause. So I don't know if Susan, you'd like to answer all these questions, or any of the panelists would like to speak. Please, just go ahead.
To begin with the logistical issues, yes, we're posting all the slides on the INPEA website. And we're also going to have a recording. I believe the technical person is here, but I believe we had a recording on YouTube today. So that would be available.
Yes, we have.
Okay, fine.
And the good news is without the video bump, so it's gonna be good.
Oh, all right, it's good news. So, oh well. So that's recorded, and that will be available to you at any time. And so there were slides, the recording, and there was one other thing that you had found in the box that was technical, but I can't remember.
It was about theater play.
Yes.
Yes, we have video, we have link, but maybe it will be better to have this webinar, as we think, to organize in July, to have World Health Organization, INPEA, to have people who are actors, and you can watch all play. It's about 49 minutes all play, and then to ask questions, because this play is changing the life of this person. That's ordinary persons who are living their life. One is cook, one working in as a secretary, one work as a cleaning lady. It's ordinary people who start to act and to fight for the rights of the intergenerational rights, not only for the older person. We will like to have this webinar with the questions to our actors.
I think that sounds like a good plan. Then we can have a discussion after it. Talk. So we'll send out. We can send that out to the registrants today. Information about it, and if they want to register for that, they are welcome. Thank you, Natasha. And then we wanted to talk a bit about what could be done, what plans, or how can we start to reduce the amount of abuse that's been evidenced here. But I think it's important to say that not every nursing home has that much difficulty with their staff and their patients. And I find over the years, ones that were the best were the ones that treated their staff the best. And when I did trainings years ago at the Attorney General's office on elder abuse, I would go to train the CNAs. It would be 7 o'clock Saturday morning. It was mandatory. They had to be there, get a babysitter, get there, whatever, who knows what was going on in their life. But they didn't even provide them with coffee. So if I didn't bring coffee, they had to go to these trainings. I mean, they just were treated as miserably. But as I said, where we went to places that were more concerned about their staff, everything. The staff was more concerned about the residents. It was really a human thing. I think if you treat people with dignity, you know, it helps to model that, you know, not to make them perfect. But I think that also there were some good suggestions in the chat, a couple of different countries that had been doing some work. So maybe we could look at that and see if somebody wants to come up with a idea.
Thanks, Susan. We also have a question from Leah.
May I just said about something, compassion fatigue. We just finished research about compassion fatigue in nursery home in Serbia, and we realized that they don't have problem with the money. They have problem with the organization of work, shifts, and they have a problem with they don't have training and don't have psychosocial support. And they said they need it because if they don't, they will have burnout syndrome, and we will show this result very soon.
Thanks, Natasha. We have a hand raised from Miss Leah Dykman. If you want to go ahead and ask your question or intervene.
Yes, if possible. Okay, good afternoon to everybody. Susan, Robert, Bridget, Natasha, and everybody I know, I have known for so many years. I just wanted to make you a proposal. Probably some of you know that we're going to present about the care of at the end of life in South Africa in next September. But I want to invite you all, because probably it's going to be a shorter way, or a cheaper way also for next year. So we could have at least 3 symposiums at the International Association of Gerontology and Geriatric that is going to be in July in Amsterdam. And I think this is one of the subjects we should be talking about. There's a lot of professionals from all kinds of disciplines who really need to talk about this, because this is happening all over the world and for different reasons. But this word, dignity, compassion, care, are really the only possibilities that we will have to be able to avoid this kind of behavior. It's not, I know it is important to have the money, to have the resources, the economical resources, but it's important to have the human resources. And we have, for all the ways we can, to educate, to give all the possibilities to the people who are working daily with older persons with dementia, all the persons without dementia, but they really need to learn. There are so many people who are working with elder people and they don't know how to do the job. So I'm sorry I talked too long. People who knows me knows I get very excited about it. And I really hope I will see you again sometime, somewhere. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Leah. And Lucy, you have your hand up, please.
Yes, just to follow up on this, I mean, it goes even deeper into how we treat the care as such in our societies, how we see, working in a care, what's the prestige of this occupation, and what does it mean to be, care provision, to be care provider. My colleague has this, and it's very harsh saying, but I will share it with you. She says when there's any case of mistreatment of any dog or some animals, living in the farms, the Minister of Agriculture will come on television and will say something about it. It never happens in cases, and we do have covered cases in public domain in the media, and nobody ever stood up and really, what's the word, like said this is wrong. So we are really, we can go even deeper and try to think like, when we say care, what we imagine, and then who is attracted in a way to do these jobs. And Natasha was mentioning this fluctuation of employees that's happening also in Czech Republic. So it's really more also about the values that we need to kind of, I don't know how, but we need to change those, and then everything else hopefully will follow. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucy. Ellen?
Just want to go back to what makes it so that we haven't made enough progress. So, I want to ask, what value do we have in our society for older adults and individuals living with disabilities? We have 70% of nursing homes nationwide are for-profit. There's a long-standing and strong, well-funded pushback by industry, despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary. Going back to Susan's point, these are people caring for people. And as long as the people who provide the care are not respected, recognized for their efforts, supported, and everything starts from leadership. Everything starts from the top, from ownership and administrators and corporate offices. And I always say the quality of care can only be as good as the care, support, education, and support of these individuals providing the care. And with regards to training, in the state of Texas, you're required to have 400 hours of training and a test to be able to take care of your nails and your hair. And we know how many hours are required in nursing homes, and much, much less in assisted living residences. So I just wanted to add that to the discussion.
Thank you, Ellen, for that. And
good afternoon. I wanted to raise my hand, but for some reason, there is no way I can do it. I wonder if I can just briefly comment how grateful I am for this program. And un abrazo to all my colleagues and friends that I have not seen in years. But let me tell you that this is a topic very, very close to my heart, not only because I have been an ombudsman for many years, but also because many of my loved ones were in nursing homes. One of them, my younger brother, who went just before the pandemic. But through the Sanctuary for Longevity project for years, we had been introducing resolutions exactly to point out the what's happening in the nursing homes. And I just recently have some of those right here with me. And just to take one of them, listen, whereas the consequences of COVID-19 related isolation and social restrictions on the well-being of nursing home residents and their family members are well documented. According to family members, distances, abbreviated pre-existing conditions, sudden progression in memory losses, and significant deterioration on physical abilities. Both residents and family members experience anxiety, grief, and severe stress. The late Alejandro Dillon Salinas, my brother, who was the president of the resident council, and his family, he expressed concern that he and his fellow residents might die due to the lack of quality of care and lack of social contact between the facility and the lockdown. This is just an example. Since then, my brother has passed. So yes, let's have the discussion going, and I'll be willing to be in any of the panels. I do have a lot of documented instances of abuse and neglect on older adults in the nursing homes. And guess what? It happens mostly on the hands of the staff. And to be specific, the nurses' aides. and it's all documented, and I'll be delighted to be part of the conversation on a bigger panel. Thank you so much. And Susan and Leah and all of my colleagues, thank you.
Well, I think we need to wrap up now because it's past 3. And,
I'll give you back the floor. I didn't really introduce you, but I don't think there's anything I can say that has not been said about you already. So
I think I'm just going to say thank you to all the panelists, the participants, the moderator, Mal, for suggesting this great moderator. It was fantastic. Of course, your reputation preceded you. So thank you for being with us and for sharing what's going on in your region, comparing. This is what we should be doing more of, exchanging information. And it was a great example that a couple of different countries put in information from their particular area so that the researchers amongst us can use them. But I really want to say a thank you to Patricia Brownell. Pat wasn't there to help me most of the time. I just fall flat on my face. But she's there. She catches me often. And Leah has been a great stalwart, taking her time to teach me and mentor me over the years. I'm glad to see her here today. But we want to remember that, solving this problem is an intergenerational thing. And we have some really good news with some really wonderful new students. One who happens to be Pat's granddaughter, Caitlin Chun, and another young from Brazil, Gabriela Ramos Bonella. Or two students that have just started with INPEA, and we're looking forward to really developing the student section so that keep the job going, keep the effort going. So thank you all for coming, and hope to see you next year.
Thank you, Susan. Thanks, Pat.
Take care, everybody. A big abrazo.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Sarah. Have a good night. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.